All right, well, thanks everyone for coming. As those get signed in and join us, just feel free, and gonna kind of just do a little quick intro and then get right into the Q&A. So I'm Felix Foster. I'm the board chair of Twin Cities Pride. For the past, year now, we've been discussing kind of dot succession and how we were going to move forward in finding a new executive director. And so this is kind of the final hurrah of the culmination of all the work we've done so far. Had a couple of town halls, done a couple of community outreach sessions. The job description and the posting was made national, so we got applications from all over the place. We had, like 20, I think, at least applicants. So we did interviews and narrowed it down to the 3 we have before us. So I will do a quick intro of each of our candidates and then just a couple of housekeeping reminders and pass it off to Bridget to moderate. So our first candidate is Luke Lincolnship, currently the Development and Communications Manager for the Pride Center in San Antonio, where he coordinates 10 annual events, generates fundraising opportunities, and oversees a variety of communication channels. Prior to that, Luke served as Executive Director of St. Pete Pride, the largest Pride nonprofit in Florida. He's pursuing his master's degree in nonprofit leadership and management at Arizona State University with an expected completion in 2023.
Thank you all for having me.
Thanks for being here. Next, we have Andy Otto, currently the Director of Operations for Twin Cities Pride, a position he has held since March 2022. Additionally, he has held several leadership positions at Twin Cities Pride as volunteer staff and board member for over the past 15 years. For the past 6 years, Andy has also served as CEO of Mommies of an Angel, an online retail business providing weighted bears to families who have lost a child, and more recently as a doula to same-sex couples. Through leadership roles at Blue Alliance and Sam's Club, Andy has an extensive background in business finance, creating processes, overseeing teams, DEI, compliance, and HR. Thank you for being here, Andy. And our third candidate is Nancy Corsaw. She's been in the banking industry for the past 10 years. Currently serving as Director of Diversity and Inclusion and Senior Manager of Diversity Community Partnerships at the nonprofit Black Business Enterprise, where her responsibilities include educating BIPOC business owners and developing DE&I curriculum for internal teams and community members. All right, well, thank you all for being here. Just a few little housekeeping things for our crowd, because we did source all of the questions tonight over the last week and a half. We won't be taking live questions tonight from the chat. So all the questions have been kind of pre-prepared, pre-selected, and will be moderated by Bridget. Also, because as I mentioned, our search process was nationwide. We had a lot of different people from different backgrounds, as we do on the call tonight. We're not limiting the questions to direct relationships and involvement with Twin Cities Pride, but just general experience and backgrounds and as they apply to the future position. And with that, I will pass it over to Bridget.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Bridget Roche, and I'm a member of the Twin Cities Pride Executive Board and the moderator of our town hall this evening. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. So as Felix stated, the format of the town hall will be a Q&A. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question, and Jacqueline is our timekeeper, and he will raise hand when you have 30 seconds 30 seconds left, and call time when your 2-minute slot is over. So without further ado, let's get going. We're going to begin our Q&A with a question about past experience with Pride. So Nancy, we'll begin with you. Can you describe your past experience as a staff member, volunteer, and or participant with Twin Cities Pride, and how it will help you shape your experience as you lead the organization as executive director? And if you've not previously participated in Twin Cities Pride, how would you go about leading the organization?
Hi, thanks for the question, Bridget. So first, congratulations to Luke and Andy. Great work out there. So I'm actually the only outsider here. I have participated with Pride in Italy, France, and actually it's a different type of Pride in Africa. And it it's part of my passion, and it's all about bringing diversity to those events and just showing face and supporting in any way that I can. So I haven't had any direct contact with Pride here in Minneapolis, but I've definitely helped worldwide, and I'm really excited for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Luke?
So talking about Pride involvement brings me right back to my first Pride parade that I ever went to when I was 16 years old, just coming out of the closet and trying to discover myself, who I was. It was pouring down rain, but for the first time in my life, I felt like I was around people that I could feel comfortable in my own skin. And that experience changed my life to a point where LGBTQ plus advocacy will always be a part of what I do, whether that is in a volunteer capacity or that is in a paid role. After that, I started working in the high school GSA. I worked in the Pride Alliance in college. I volunteered with PFLAG in Tampa, GLSEN Tampa Bay, and then I volunteered with St. Pete Pride, where my involvement worked from being a general volunteer to the parade director, to the development director and working with fundraising, and then certainly in a large fundraising capacity, raising over $1 million while I was executive director there with the organization. So I've pretty much done every capacity within a large Pride organization like Florida's largest in St. Pete Pride, and would love to take my talents over to Twin Cities as well.
Great, thank you so much, Luke. And Andy?
Well, I have to say I probably have the advantage because I've spent the last 15 years around Twin Cities Pride, and this is my home, this is my community. At Twin Cities Pride, I've had various roles here. Everything, I started out as the volunteer coordinator, volunteer director at that point in time. Then it turned into volunteer coordinator, then board, then parade, safety and security, and now back to board. So I've been all over. I've actually been a vendor at Twin Cities Pride, all the way to my current role, which is director of operations for Pride. So for me, Pride here is very personal. These are my family, and when we go, the best thing about Pride here is when you look around and you see the true, like Luke said, it's home. It's home to our community. This is a place where they come and they're able to be who they want to be. And so pulling that all together, like I said, I have lots of experience in this organization. But really that's what it comes down to. It comes down to representing the community here and continuing to strive to be the best.
Thank you so much for answering that question. Our next is, what would be your approach to understanding the culture of the Twin Cities LGBTQ plus community? We're gonna kick this one off with Andy.
For sure. Well, one, again, this is my home, this is my community, but I think there's a very important piece, and that is understanding the whole entire community, getting out there and listening. You have to listen to the community. We have to look at what's out there. As executive director, and I know, this has been a thing over the past about being transparent with the community and really listening and understanding and explaining to the community why you're doing the things that you're doing and when you're doing them.
And Luke?
So right after, if I get the position, I would want to meet with every single key community stakeholder that has any sort of involvement within the organization. That is major corporate partners, that is certainly board members, that is certainly volunteers that have been with the organization for a long time, to get a grasp on where they want to see Twin Cities Pride go in the short and long term, and make sure their voices are heard. One thing that I definitely want to do specifically with board members is to see what is one thing that they can do, or one thing that we can do to make Twin Cities Pride better within that year, and then again meet with them that following year and see if we achieved that objective. If we did not, how we can reach that mark the following year, and that certainly can be continued with corporate partners and certainly key community stakeholders within the city, within other nonprofit LGBTQ plus organizations in town as well.
Thank you so much. And Nancy.
Bridget, I would definitely bring a fresh perspective. The first thing I would do is look at historically what has worked for Pride. And what are some of the things that need to change? Sometimes we're a bit resistant to change, but the world is just changing constantly. So the first thing I would do is definitely look at the historical data to see where we're at. We don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel. And I'm big on surveying. I believe that all solutions come from people. So I would definitely go directly to the people involved with Pride and people that should have been involved that maybe weren't, and try to reach those communities that perhaps didn't know that this is welcome to all, and try to bridge that gap and bring people together to grow a better organization. I definitely think that there's a lot of room for improvement, and I do believe I bring very good outside perspective, and it's such a great organization that I believe that it should reach more places. So that would be my approach.
And tying into the conversation about culture, how will you contribute to Twin Cities Pride's efforts to enhance DEI in a meaningful way for our POC and trans community members, as well as those with disabilities? And also, have you engaged with a DEI workshop or work with a DEI committee? We're going to start this question with Luke.
Yes. So one of the first things that I did when I was with St. Pete Pride was work with the trans community and put on Florida's first ever Trans Pride March. We had thousands of trans, non-binary allies to lead off our parade, and that has become a tradition that has lasted up to this point. In terms of working with the wide variety of folks within the LGBTQ plus community, it's important to make sure everybody's voices are heard, and because for a couple of reasons. One, from an internal perspective, we need to have everybody's voices within the entire LGBTQ plus umbrella, within the board of directors, within volunteers, because if we don't, then we are missing out on an opportunity to bring everybody together to be able to impact them in a positive way. When we have people in a diverse group of folks that are within Twin Cities Pride, from an external perspective, people look at that and they see people that look like them, talk like them, and they feel more comfortable to attend our events, to be with our organization, and to work with us. And that is so incredibly important. Yeah, did I miss any other aspect of that question, or is there anything else that you would like me to answer?
No, thank you so much for your response. Next, we're going to go to Andy.
Well, first, I am the trans community. I'm a proud trans man, and that's a big deal, right? We have a lot of hate against the trans community right now. The whole entire HRC dinner was stemming around the violence that's hitting the trans community, and I think that that's important and needed. I think that the trans, the BIPOC, and the disability communities need to have a voice, and we need to continue to reach out to those organizations and those people and just listen. I mean, we sat on, oh goodness, at least a handful of calls this year about accessibility, disabilities that we aren't addressing. we need to do a couple things. You know, we are outgrowing our park right now, and so we need to look at expanding and doing things like that. And it's just about continuing to listen. And to Luke's point too, I think showing diversity in the organization goes a long way. Extending those hands to those organizations that also serve those communities goes a long way. And having those relationships so that you can have the frank conversations and that people understand that all are welcome at Pride. And so when it comes to diversity and inclusion, it's about outreach, it's about talking to your community, and it's about follow through on the promises that you make.
Nancy.
Again, I'm going to bring a fresh perspective to this. So I'm a member of the LGBTQ community. I was born and raised in Italy, and I am a Black woman. So when it comes to diversity, I always say I am diversity. I've been part of course, many committees. I've actually spoken at many events, and a few years back spoke at the Rome Gay Pride. Now, of course, all of this is international work, but it's still truly the same. And what I'm realizing is when it comes to diversity, we are still really far. We're still really far from our goal. So what I do believe that we need to do is not just have meaningful conversations, but actually actions behind that. There has been a lot of crime, as Andy just stated. There has been a lot of crime against the community, and there's been a lot of events that have happened. But how do we change that? And how do we bridge that gap where we're able to actually really meaningfully connect to other communities and make our voices heard? I believe I have the solution. And again, it's people. I 100% believe in using people to find solutions. So when it comes to diversity, we do have a long road to go. But I 100% believe that just talking to leaders that can actually implement that change, and community people that have voices that are heard, actually connecting to them would help us implement those changes that we talk about and that we want so badly.
Thank you all very much. Andy, we'll begin the next one with you. What is your position on equity and inclusion of LGBTQAI seniors in the Pride celebration, those 50 plus? How will you ensure that LGBTQAI seniors and folks with disabilities are welcomed and included in Pride events?
You know, I think they are our history, they are our current. There's more and more people in the LGBTQ community that are falling into that category. Again, when we go back to disabilities and accessibility and that, I know that from a ground level, there's some things that we need to do and continue to do at the festival grounds, including expanding it, making it wider. When you try to fit 350,000 people into that space, that poses challenges as a whole. So I think we need to look at that. But again, it goes to everyone is welcome. It's about having our, generations of Pride tent. It's about having the vendors that benefit them, as well as the other side. We've seen an uptick in both the older generations of LGBTQ along with the younger generations. And so I think that as we continue to move forward, it's about having the conversations with them, but also doing some logistical things to help mitigate that for them.
Thank you, Andy. And Nancy, what is your position?
For me, it's a bit different, right? I think the first thing is not assuming that they may not be part of it or it's not convenient for them. So creating spaces for them without even being asked, and maybe matchmaking, the younger generation with that Asian population together, so everybody has a partner and they can look forward to the event and be excited because they have someone completely different or younger that get them excited, help them get ready. I feel like there's more community related things that can be done to help them feel even more included. But I think just literally putting it on the platter and having it ready for them so that they not just feel included, but they didn't even have to ask. That's the approach that I would take.
And Luke.
Yes. So with my time in St. Pete Pride, this was a big project that I worked on, making sure that we had accessible seating at 3 different areas of the parade route was important. So a 20-foot area right along the parade route that was barricaded off to make sure that folks could be able to have accessible seating if needed. Also, we had sign language interpreters, of course, on the stage and on podiums on every single block along the parade route to make sure that everybody could understand what was going on from the narrator that was narrating the parade as well. After the event, having a survey that goes out and asking specifically from people that used accessible seating, that needed potential other services, what could we have done better is important to always be able to improve those. And that's really why we were able to get those ideas from the accessible seating along the parade route. And lastly, having events for a specific portion of our community that's that's specific to them is important. And having a senior specific event, I think, would be a fantastic thing to potentially bring to Twin Cities Pride as well.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. And if you could please describe how you've managed volunteers in the past or given back to the community in a non-paid role. And for this question, we'll begin with Nancy.
Oh my goodness, that's my whole life. So currently with Black Business Enterprises, I'm 100% on a volunteer basis. I've taken every single weekend for the last 7 years to teach free financial literacy classes. And on top of that, building websites. I trained myself to build websites for the community and purchased personally over 300 laptops to donate. I am 100% a believer in helping people access technology because that's where the future is going. And just didn't want people to feel excluded just because they don't have a laptop. They can either have a job, a work from home job, or participate in other activities. One of the biggest reasons why I believe that volunteering is a must. You can't manage volunteers without having done it yourself. I currently am managing about 127 volunteers, and I reached out to all of our corporate partners monthly until they sent us all the volunteers that we needed. And it's been really successful connecting volunteers to community members that absolutely needed it, and low income members, and without purposely matching people that were diverse, it worked out perfectly, and it just opened up minds. It opened up minds, and we were able to connect the younger populations, people of color, Native Americans to each other, and it's just been extremely rewarding.
Thank you so much. We'll continue with Luke.
Yes, so my goodness, volunteering has been a part of my life, certainly in my entire adult life, but really from that turning point of when I turned 16, went to that first Pride Parade, and then started volunteering for LGBTQ+ organizations. Like I mentioned earlier, I have worked with GLSEN Tampa Bay, which is a nonprofit organization that works with guidance counselors and teachers to form GSAs within schools and providing them tools and resources to make sure that LGBTQ+ kids have a safe space to go to, or a safe person to go to. PFLAG Tampa Bay, I'm sure you all are familiar with PFLAG. I don't need to go into that. And then on the business side, I was a board member for the Tampa Bay Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce as well, working from the business side and making sure that the LGBTQ plus friendly businesses were also being able to promote themselves and find a way to advertise and express themselves in an appropriate manner. I began my journey with St. Pete Pride as a general volunteer. Leading volunteers was a huge part of my job. I ran the production team there, both as development director and then overseeing it as executive director. So it was a team of 13 volunteers that basically did the parade, that did the festival, that did the Pride Parks, and just making sure that, you know, everything was taken care of, teaching them how to create the parade maps, the festival maps, the Pride Parks maps, and making sure that everything was organized in a safe and sustainable way. And lastly, I love volunteering at the SPCA and working and making sure that the disadvantaged animals are taken care of as much as they can.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And Andy.
Yeah, so again, my first 14 and a half years with Twin Cities Pride was completely volunteer. Most people in our community don't understand that up until this year, there's one paid person. The rest are volunteers. That's it. And so I think that when I started truly understanding, I mean, we run about 300 volunteers day of events. And then we run about 30 volunteers staff to run the events, much like your Pride, Luke. So I think that's very unique, and I've done that again for 14 and a half years. Part of the reason I started my company Time of Birth was to help the LGBTQ community when it comes to trying for a family. There's so little resources when it comes out to that. And so I often, which is part of the reason I started Time of Birth at the festival, was because, again, it was that resource to get out to the community to help guide them in a way that they could help fulfill their family needs as well. So like Luke and like Nancy, volunteerism is near and dear to my heart. That is something we've always done, and it's something I preach to my kids. And so, yeah, you can't make Pride go around without volunteers, that's for sure.
Great. And what is your vision of how to grow our community in the face of adversity around government entities, violent protesters, etc.? We'll begin this question with Luke.
Whew, goodness, what a big question. So government entities, and what was the second part of it?
In the face of adversity around government entities and violent protesters, etc., that we face at Pride.
Yes. That is difficult, a very difficult and nuanced approach that needs to be taken lightly. So first, from a government perspective, making sure that we are proactive with meeting with government officials, understanding what we want our parade and festival to be, and how we want to go about things, and whether or not and hopefully they would agree with us in making sure that that we can run our events without a hitch. I am a big proponent of killing them with kindness, being as kind as humanly possible, without kind of working against them. And if that is the route that we had to go, then so be it. But I would rather work through diplomacy than go against them. But if you're not working for the LGBT community, which there are a lot of enemies within government organizations, then you have to do what you have to do to protect your community at large. In terms of violent protesters that occur at prides, so we have security and making sure that parade routes are safe for everybody is number one priority. At St. Pete Pride, we had threats along the parade route well, not necessarily along the parade, but ahead of time that were snuffed out by our security. I always like to say, because of our security along the parade route, that it was the safest place in the entire city because of the security measures that we took along the parade route. That is barricades along every block. Gotcha.
Thank you so much. I'll continue on with Andy.
For sure. And Luke, like you, I'm sure I'll run out of time. This is a passionate subject of mine. So, when it comes to government agencies, you have to work with them, even if your personal opinions disagree with them. You have to work with them. And I'm a firm believer in firm, fair, and consistent. If I am consistent about our message and I'm consistent about what we do and our expectations, we've been proven that that works and that we can get the respect that's deserved. And so, again, I go back to firm, fair, and consistent. You're not always going to agree, but if you set the expectation and the understanding, then I think you can make things work. When it comes to violent threats, we live and breathe it in this world. And so it's about staying on top of communities. It's about staying on top of those sources. It's about staying on top of what's going on in the world, because, what happens here may not be what happens down in Tennessee or what happens in Utah, like we saw this year. So it's really about being educated about what threats and then preparing your team to fight back against those or deter them, which is what we've continued to do for years, is the ability to deter those events with very, very strategic planning so that it never becomes an issue. Oh, see, I was close on time.
And Nancy?
Bridget, and I want to make sure your question was, how do you grow the community in the face of all of these adversities, correct? So I think the key to growing the community is, number one, educating the community, number one, on all threats and everything that could possibly happen, scenario based. When I was a flight attendant, that's what we did, right? We weren't going to crash every day, but we planned and prepared and trained for it. So I think just planning and preparing the entire community for it. First, once they feel safe, that's how we grow the community. They invite others because they know that they'll be safe. And I think just getting creative on perhaps maybe not repeating the same thing every year and changing routes, changing locations, just kind of confusing your enemy per se, for lack of a better word. But I just think just being a little creative and just catching people off guard, if they don't know all the plans, they can't, I think it would deter a lot of the violence that has happened. Just kind of coming up with brand new, fresh ideas. And also, of course, educating staff and team, as Andy said. But I think the number one thing prior to the events, there definitely has to be a whole lot of education and just reminders of safety and safety measures to take. As far as the government, lobbying just it's too big of a topic, right? I hope I'm not out of time. And also how to combat those violent threats. I 100% believe in partnership. Who can we partner with that is outside of the community that can be a protector? Who can we talk to that can become an ally and protector during these events and any other event to help protect the community? I 100% believe that we can achieve that. We just have to ask.
Thank you all so much. Andy, can you describe an experience where you publicly championed diversity?
I just did it today. As a matter of fact, I just sat down today with the VP of Diversity and Inclusion for the Minnesota Timberwolves after Mr. Edwards decided that he was going to say some things that weren't they're not worth repeating, let's put it that way, about our community. That's our community. Those are our people. And if you are part of this community, you know exactly where that was taken. And so today we met with them and told them it's not okay. And we need to educate him and teach him about what he did. And it's not about the words that he said, but it's the impact that was said. And so you have to continue to stand up and say, this is not okay. And like we did today, you cannot do this. This is not okay, and we won't tolerate it, and we won't stand for it. We deserve better. We as a community deserve better than our NBA players making comments like that. And so continuing to push the envelope and challenge those that speak either hate or ignorance or just, quite honestly, just lack of knowledge. You have to stand up and you have to say that. So yeah, today I sat in the middle of a room and said it's not okay, and here's what we need you to do to fix it.
Nancy, can you describe an experience where you publicly championed diversity?
Absolutely. So I worked for a very large corporation that actually has given dollars to Pride. And I was written up for inciting a riot because they would not accommodate one of our LGBTQ members within the company. She had a very, very serious grievance. And it was really violence committed within the workplace by a manager, and there was nothing done. So I started a petition within the company, and I was written for inciting a violence. And then again on NPR News, I talked about the same incident. I am completely okay with sacrificing to give voice to the voiceless. I think just seeing injustice being, happening in front of us and not seeing anything, saying anything or doing anything about it is the real crime. So that's just a couple of examples, but there's far more. And just like Andy, I don't think any of us, although we're competing on this platform, I don't think any of us would stop and not advocate or say something, because the consequences are really not as important as being able to be a voice for those that haven't found their voice yet.
And Luke.
So as I stated earlier, one of the first things that I did as executive director of St. Pete Pride was help facilitate a conversation on how we could better advocate for the trans community in Tampa Bay and in the state of Florida as a whole. And the community determined that a trans pride march was the best way to go about that. So we led our parade, and that is now a tradition of the Trans Pride March, with leading off the parade every year to give visibility and to give more advocacy toward the trans community that has largely been neglected, certainly at a state level in Florida, but at a federal level as well. I've talked a lot about my parade, my Pride Parade and festival involvement, but currently, oh my goodness, like that is such a major part of what I do now. So in terms of like the events that I put on, we do 2 Pride family events. San Antonio has the second largest LGBTQ plus family community in the country, and we do 2 large festivals, one during Halloween and one during Easter, to make sure that there is a place where LGBTQ plus families can feel loved and accepted and have a great time and network as well. A couple of events that I've secured funding for with St. Pete or with Pride Center San Antonio was our BIPOC career support group, to be able to pay for a facilitator for that, and also the center now provides LGBTQ plus youth empowerment conference and summer camp as well. So being able to champion diversity for every member of our LGBT community is something that is near and dear to my heart.
Wonderful, thank you again. If you have been responsible for a large-scale fundraising campaign, can you describe the role that you played? And if you have not, what skills do you have that would contribute to a successful campaign? We'll begin this one with Nancy.
Yes, I'm currently fundraising, but I guess I can go back to the George Floyd era. I was able to raise about $300,000 in 3 days. Working in the banking industry really helped me connect with a lot of very important people that are necessary, that actually are decision makers. So I use my connections and relationships to be able to fundraise. I currently am part of about 67 different diverse groups all over the world. One of them being the Women's President Organization, which is $10 million or more worth women. And the pure reason for being in those groups is to educate people on things that are needed in the community, fundraising needs, and really help them. Again, a lot of people in power have no idea what to do with their money. They have no idea what the need is out in the community because sometimes they get a little bit out of touch. So I make it my priority to connect with them and let them know where they should direct those dollars. Also, I am relentless when it comes to fundraising, and I do not take no. I believe in no, it's a maybe. So when it comes to fundraising, and everyone I think knows that at this point. I've built quite a reputation around that, and I make it a point to stay relevant to my contacts by building relationships and actually connecting with them on a personal level. Okay, what's their child's birthday? What's their birthday? Can I reach out? Can I teach them another language? Like, it's just staying in touch with them constantly. Those make for the best relationships. And anytime I'm fundraising, they always come through. My gala is actually in a week, and we have over 157 sponsors. And that is all because of relationship building. So I do believe that is a superpower, and I definitely will be more than happy to help Twin Cities Pride. I was hoping not to see you.
And then Luke, can you describe the role you played in a large-scale fundraising campaign?
Sure. This is my bread and butter. This is what I've done really from the get-go from any paid position that I've been with LGBTQ plus organizations. So with St. Pete Pride, I grew fundraising dollars by 133%. In terms of the process, there's a lot of psychology behind it. So when you sit down with people over food, they are naturally more likely to connect with you. I will also say that, like, usually when people are sitting down with you to talk about LGBTQ plus topics, they are there for a reason, because they are an ally. If you structure it in an appropriate and professional manner with a professional sponsorship packet, you know what you're going to say in your process. It can be very effective. I have a very high retention rate of folks coming back, I believe 90% in terms of folks returning as corporate sponsors with St. Pete Pride. Also, showing return on investments when what you're getting from your sponsorships. So also after the parade and festival, having a packet that goes out and being like, here's the deliverables that you had the banners along the parade route. Here is your half-page ad. 40,000 copies went out to the city. Just making sure that folks understand what they're getting for their corporate sponsorship dollars. Details, thank you notes, that personal touch and connection is so incredibly important to make sure that folks know that they are loved and welcomed. And I often think about, like, what is the next process of fundraising, and that is individual giving, which is a huge aspect of Pride nonprofits that I feel like is a big sore spot that we have not touched on, because that's just kind of how we've grown, was from corporate fundraising dollars. So having an effective person that knows how to do individual giving is important.
Thank you, Luke. And Andy?
All right, I'm going to try not to see Jacqueline here. I'll back off of Pride for a minute, because again, I'm at a little bit of an advantage here. But so I think fundraising is about, I raised, was it 467,000 for infant loss. Nobody wants to talk about infant loss. Nobody does. Nobody wants to talk about maybe their children not being here, right? And so I think when it comes to fundraising, you really have to look at the personal impact. How is it going to impact them? How is it going to drive home why the money? You have to show the why. This is why we need it. We don't just need to throw a festival to have a party. We need to have a festival to celebrate what we've overcome, to continue to fight for what we need, and to show our support, right? So we need to give a place. And by showing your sponsors that, and showing the people you are asking for money for, that goes a long way. And it's about persistence. It's about staying in front of them, reminding them, knowing when their fiscal plans are coming around, knowing everything about them and their contributions, knowing their company. You got to know their company. You got to understand their company and what they stand for and where their dollars are coming from. So, and again, to Luke's point, you have to show them an ROI, right? You can't get a company to come back year after year if you're not showing them their worth and what you did with their money. And so I think that having to show that and having to continue, oh, I see the hand up, to do all of that makes you successful at fundraising, right? That's what makes you successful. Gosh darn it, I tried. All right.
Thought we could do it. All right, thank you all so much for your answers to that question. Luke, you touched on this in a previous question. Can you expand on how would you manage your relationship with the board of directors of Twin Cities Pride?
Yep. So sitting down with them one-on-one, having one objective annually to see how we can improve the organization. Working with them and maybe their area of expertise, because I feel like with a lot of board members, especially with organizations that are large with Twin Cities Pride, right? Like, what sort of value do you bring to the organization? And kind of tailoring that with that potential area of improvement within the organization, right? So sitting down with them once or twice a year, seeing if we met that benchmark. And if we did, excellent. What's the next one? If we didn't, how can we get that the following year?
Wonderful. Andy?
Yeah, I think, that relationship needs to be fostered like anybody working underneath you, right? It is about having one open and honest communication back and forth between the board members and yourself. It's about, understanding that even though you're the executive director, it's a team effort. It's a team effort in everything that we do. And as I'm very much a servant leader, what I do isn't a reflection of just me, it's a reflection of my team. And so I think that that's incredibly important. And it is about setting goals and achieving them and having that and being accountable to what you say and out front. And I'm curious if he's going to cut me off here, but so yeah, I think, you foster those relationships. You get to know your board, you get to know what strengths they have, maybe what they need to learn about. Maybe they don't know everything about the organization, and maybe you can teach them that. So it's being open and honest and willing to take the feedback and willing to give the feedback.
Thank you. And Nancy?
Well, the first thing I definitely want to learn about all the board members one by one. So just having some one-on-one time and celebrating them, because it takes a lot of work volunteering year after year, time, everything, money. It's quite a bit. And also a lot of people get emotionally attached to the organization. So I would want to just celebrate them. That's first things. Then I would definitely want to know what's going well and what's not working so well, and figure out how to actually make those changes and implement those changes. Then I'll probably take the board members to Italy or something. I don't know. When's the last time you've taken a trip? But aside from jokes, to me, it's very important in building relationship and fostering those relationships, but also figuring out if the board members maybe are time. You know, sometimes we dedicate so much time to an organization, and maybe just figure out if people's objective is still the same, and if they're still wanting to be part of the organization. And I think fresh perspective is absolutely vital. So I will look into either keep them as legacy board members, or figure out if they can bring in someone that they think that could improve Twin Cities Pride even more.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And our last question of the evening, can you describe why pride is important to you and how it plays into your identity? And Luke, we'll be beginning with you.
Yeah, pride has such a personal aspect to my life. It changed my life, the trajectory of my life, and seeing people that were okay to be themselves was simply life-changing. As I said before, LGBTQ plus advocacy will be a part of my life, whether that is from a volunteer perspective or that is from a paid perspective. Why pride continues to be important to me is that organizations and events that we put on are very unique, because it brings together, you know, that 16-year-old gay boy that is just coming into their own, and like that 90-year-old trans woman that has seen the entire progression of the modern LGBTQ plus movement. And I can't really think of a lot of places that can bring together that type of community. And it's just why pride organizations and pride events are so special. It's hard to quantify why prides are so important. It's just like something that is in my head that will never go away, that will always be a special part of what, you know, I'm all about. And I would love to be your next leader with Twin Cities Pride. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. And Nancy.
I mean, I come from a country where people have to hide still to this day. Ghana, Nigeria, even Italy, they're way behind the times. So I do believe that we're extremely fortunate, but there's still a long way to go. And I know that and see that. And coming from another country and seeing what Twin Cities Pride has done here, I can definitely see the differences, and I can also see some of the things that can be improved on. It's close to me because I have seen people getting killed over just who they are. And I have seen, you know, people just still hiding. And I just know that not only would you welcome them with open arms, but I also know that there's a huge community out there that we still need to reach. And I want to be part of that. I want no smoke, Madison.
Thank you so much. And Andy.
You know, I think like Luke said, it's hard to put into words, and it's hard to like truly express how much pride means to people. But it's, you know, it's for myself to say, you know, be able to stand in a space and say, yep, I've birthed children. Yep, I'm a trans man. Yep, I've lived out for this long, and I am okay in this space, and I am with family in this space, and I don't fear in this space, and I'm okay to be here. And I think, you know, that's why I've come back year after year after year, is because I want the next kid, you know, I want the Hildy Edwards to be able to feel safe of where she is. I want the kid from Pine City, Minnesota to come down and be okay and feel like, you know, for once, maybe, just maybe they can be themselves. And then I want to be able to educate and to empower them to go back and grow Pine City Pride even bigger, and Duluth and Mankato and all the other little ones, so that they can continue to grow their festivals and their nonprofits in their world. And I think that's why, you know, I look at this and people have asked me time and time again, why do I continue to come back? I continue to come back because this is home. This is my family. Every single one of these people who come to this festival and to our events and our run and everything, allies to the 7-year-old kid who came out as non-binary. You're my family. Like, and we have to do this for you. And that's where my passion lies, is everyone from grandma and grandpa down to that kid. So.
All right, well, that concludes our Q&A, and we'd like to, beginning with Nancy, we'd like to give you each 2 minutes. If there's anything that you wanted to talk about that you didn't get the chance to, or anything more that you would like to say as we conclude our evening.
I can go. I have to tell you, the very first Pride parade I went to, I think it was New Jersey somewhere. I have never felt so free in my life and so welcomed in my life, ever. I would love for everyone to experience that feeling. And I will say it over and over again. I have 44,000 members in Minneapolis. Not even 1/3 of them have experienced what Pride can do for their lives. So I am super passionate about this because I know I can bring and implement change, positive change, and just forward looking, forward thinking practices that can just help bridge the gap and fill that need where you know it's missing. So I'm just excited for this opportunity, and I know no matter what happens, Dot has left an amazing legacy. All we have to do is just continue and grow.
Thank you, Nancy. Andy, anything else you need to say?
You know, I think as I look at the names on the list, I think, you know, I know a lot of you, and so thank you all for coming. I know this took time out of your night, and how important this is to a lot of you. So putting aside the board, for those of you community members that are on this, thank you. Thank you for showing up tonight. And for those of you that sent in questions that maybe aren't on the call, but sent in questions and are going to watch us later, thank you so much for doing that. It means a lot to myself, to the organization, and I just want to say thanks.
All right. So what I'm going to form this question a little bit differently. A couple of goals that I would like to, right off the bat, if I get the job, implement an individual giving program for Twin Cities Pride. It's something that I did within the Pride Center San Antonio. We call it the Pride Center Family. And often, and I brought this up earlier, is what is like kind of the next era of the Pride movement. I would like to see us kind of get away from corporate dollars, and I'm all for, you know, keeping the lights on and all that, but I would love to be able to have a community or a Pride organization that can have a significant portion of their organization funded by the individuals within the community. Now, I don't think corporations are going to go away by any means. And in fact, I would like to just certainly grow corporate giving within my first year within the organization. So those are a couple of goals that I would have within the first year. Just to wrap everything up, y'all have been extraordinarily professional, certainly efficient from the interviews that we've done, and I feel like with a lot of the folks that I've seen and I've chatted with, we have a good amount of chemistry. So I would love to make that transition up to Minnesota and to be able to get to know y'all face to face and you know, take out a drinks. I want to know some delicious Minnesota spots, some delicious cuisine. I want to know. I want to get to really feel that Midwest life. So again, thank you for the opportunity, y'all.
And I just want to say how inspirational it was to hear the three of you speak on your varied experiences, both professionally and personally. And I can't thank the three of you enough for the work that you do and are already done for the queer community and beyond. So thank you for being a part of this process and for championing the values and causes that need more champions in this world. And with that, I will pass it to Felix to discuss future steps and what to expect next.
Great. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you, all three of you, for participating in this and having such insightful and good answers. It was really great to hear, and I'm glad that our community got to join in and tune in, and that hopefully some more people will be able to watch it. I believe Mikey just put into chat a little follow-up form for feedback from the audience. So if anyone would like to fill that out about how they felt about tonight's town hall, that would be lovely. Our next steps moving forward, the board will kind of chat tonight a little bit about things we've gone through tonight together, and then hopefully get some more feedback from the audience on that form. Our next formal board meeting is next Wednesday, I believe. So I think that the plan is to kind of have our final deliberations by then and make some decisions.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Felix.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. It was great to hear, like Bridget said, very inspirational. Thanks.
Thank you, Dot.
The organization will be in wonderful hands, regardless of who is the new executive director. So yay, I can retire.
Dot, you don't have to be that excited.
Thanks, you guys. I appreciate it.
Bye. Good evening, everyone.